We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
President Duterte spokesman Secretary Salvador Panelo slams the Amnesty International and criticized as incorrigible for politicizing the alleged extrajudicial killings in the country.
International Criminal Court judges on Monday convicted a Congolese rebel chief nicknamed Terminator of war crimes, including massacring civilians and sexual enslavement.
6 people were arrested during overnight clashes in Hong Kong between riot officers and anti-government protesters.
And Britain scrambles to stem damage to its relations with Washington and find the culprit who leaked cables in which the UK ambassador called US President Donald Trump inept.
Mga Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Amnesty International alleged that President Rodrigo Duterte's narcotics crackdown has become a systematic campaign of killing and urged the United Nations to launch a probe into the deaths. But President Duterte's spokesman, Secretary Salvador Panelo, criticized as incorrigible Amnesty's call for a probe, adding that police only killed suspects in self-defense. He also maintained that the government doesn't need the interference of foreign groups like Amnesty International.
Let our own group assist our own Filipinos. We don't need them. We have a battery of human rights activists in this country. We don't need interference from any other human rights group. They cannot be belittling our own human rights groups here. They've been very busy. They've been very active in helping our countrymen who feel that they've been subject of an abuse coming from whoever.
He also said that the foreign rights group's allegations were based on false reports and false narratives, and they come from those who are against this administration. He's also urging the victims to file cases against cops allegedly involved in the abuses.
We've been asking them, show us. You give us the figures, then show us the facts and the circumstances surrounding all these 27,000 deaths. Who are these people? Under what circumstances were they been murdered or killed? But they cannot present, simply because they accept false reports and false narratives coming from those who are against this administration.
Halfway through his term, President Rodrigo Duterte's net satisfaction rating soared to new record high, with 4 of 5 Filipinos saying they are contented with his work, a social weather station survey released on Monday. An SWS survey conducted on June 22 to 26 found that 80% of adult Filipinos are satisfied, 9% undecided, and 12% dissatisfied with the performance of the country's first leader from Mindanao. Compared to March 2019, gross satisfaction with Duterte rose by 1 point from 79%. Gross undecided rose by 1 point from 8%, and gross dissatisfaction fell by 1 point from 13%. This gave the president a net satisfaction rating of positive 68. That's percent satisfied minus percent dissatisfied, which SWS classified as very good. The June 2019 Social Weather Survey used face-to-face interviews of 1,200 adults nationwide.
To other news now, police arrested 6 people during overnight clashes in Hong Kong between riot officers and anti-government protesters. Fresh political violence broke out in Hong Kong on Sunday night as riot police baton-charged anti-government protesters seeking to keep the pressure up on the city's pro-Beijing leaders after a mass rally outside a train station linking the finance hub to mainland China. Hong Kong has been rocked by a month of huge marches as well as separate violent confrontations with police involving a minority of hardcore protesters sparked by a law that would have allowed extraditions to mainland China. Now, Sunday's clashes came hours after the first demonstration since young masked protesters stormed Parliament on Monday, plunging the city into an unprecedented crisis. The extradition bill has been suspended following the backlash, but that has done little to quell the public anger, which has evolved into a now wider movement calling for democratic reforms and a stop to sliding freedoms in the semi-autonomous city. Earlier on Sunday, tens of thousands of people snaked through the streets in the harborfront district of Tsim Sha Tsui, an area popular with Chinese tourists, ending their march at a high-speed train terminus that connects to the mainland. The march was billed as an opportunity to explain to mainlanders in the city what their protest movement is about, given the massive censorship that Beijing's leaders wield. Now, the terminus where the march ended is controversial because Chinese law operates in the parts of the station dealing with immigration and customs, as well as the platforms, even though West Kowloon is kilometers from the border. Critics say that move gave away part of the city's territory to an increasingly assertive Beijing. Under Hong Kong's mini constitution, China's national laws do not apply to the city apart from in limited areas, including defense. But many say the relationship is now changing. Local politician Ventus Lau Wing Hong, one of those organizing the rally, said there was no desire to occupy the station given the catalyst for their movement was opposing people being sent to the mainland.
But this time we choose to move away from the island and come to Kowloon, where it is more layman and more tourists are located here. We hope to spread our messages to more local people and also to more mainland tourists so that we can spread this message even further, even to the China. That we are going to just peacefully communicate with them. We are just going to explain to them what Hong Kong is happening, and that Hong Kong have the freedom to protest. Hong Kong have the freedom to demonstration, and this is what we want to keep here in Hong Kong, and we want to promote it even to China.
A strong magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck off Indonesia on Sunday, the U.S. Geological Survey reported, triggering a brief tsunami warning that sent panicked residents fleeing to higher ground. The Southeast Asian nation is one of the most disaster hit on Earth due to its position straddling the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. Earthquakes and tsunamis have claimed thousands of lives in recent years. Sunday's quake struck at a depth of 24 kilometers in the Molucca Sea, 185 kilometers southeast of Manado, between Sulawesi and Maluku Islands, according to the USGS. Indonesia's Geophysics Agency issued a tsunami warning for coastal communities nearby, where residents were advised to stay away from the coast. The warning was later lifted by the agency, and there were no immediate reports of damage or casualties.
In Iran, a 5.7 magnitude earthquake struck southwest Iran near the border with Iraq on Monday, according to the country's National Seismological Center. The quake, whose epicenter was in the Masjid Suleiman area of Khuzestan province, hit at 11:30 a.m. local time at a depth of 17 kilometers. There were no immediate reports of damage or casualties, according to state TV, with teams still assessing the situation.
Monsoon-triggered landslides in Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh have killed one person and left more than 4,500 homeless. The United Nations said about 35 centimeters of rain fell in 72 hours before the landslide started Saturday in camps around Cox's Bazar that house more than 900,000 of the Muslim minority who fled Myanmar. 26 landslides were reported in makeshift camps built on hills near the border with Myanmar. Trees there have been torn up to build huts and for firewood, leaving the terrain unstable. UN Refugee Agency said about 30 shanty camps have been affected by the storms. One woman in her 50s died after being hit by a wall that collapsed.
So UNICEF, along with its implementing partners, have already started estimating the damages in all 34 camps, and it has already started establishing the communication mechanisms within the wider humanitarian community to directly respond to the incidents of the flooding and the landslides in the refugee camps.
Meanwhile, at least 29 people were killed after a bus careered off one of India's busiest roads, which has become known as the Highway to Hell because of its poor safety record. Take a look. The driver was suspected to have fallen asleep before the bus crashed into a railing and then fell into a drain between two flyovers on the Yamuna Expressway, and that connects New Delhi with Agra, the city famed for the Taj Mahal. 18 people were injured, some critically, according to police.
A South African man who won the chance to be the first black African in space has died in a motorbike crash before turning his dream into reality, his family announced Sunday. Mandla Maseko, a part-time DJ and candidate officer with the South African Air Force, was nicknamed Afronaut after landing a coveted seat to fly 103 kilometers into space in 2013 in a competition organized by a U.S.-based space academy. He died in a motorcycle accident on Saturday, according to a family statement cited by local media. The 30-year-old had beaten 1 million other entrants from 75 countries to be selected as one of 23 people who would travel on an hour-long suborbital trip on the Lynx Mark II spaceship. Born to a school cleaner and auto tool maker in Soshanguve Township near Pretoria, his win was a source of national pride and had neighbors high-fiving him for putting South Africa's townships on the galactic map. He spent a week at the Kennedy Space Academy in Florida, where he skydived and undertook air combat and G-force training.
In other news, International Criminal Court judges on Monday convicted Congolese rebel Chief Bosco Terminator Nitaganda of war crimes, including directing massacres of civilians and rape, in a badly needed victory for prosecutors in The Hague. Take a look. Nitaganda, 45, was a key leader who gave orders to target and kill civilians in the Democratic Republic of Congo's volatile, mineral-rich Ituri region in 2002 and 2003, according to head judge Robert Fremer. The atrocities included a massacre at a village where people, included children and babies, were disemboweled or had their heads smashed in, according to the judge. Nitaganda was also responsible for the rape and sexual slavery of underage girls and of recruiting troops under the age of 15, as well as guilty of personally killing a Roman Catholic priest, according to the court. Nitaganda fulfilled a very important military function. He was one of the key leaders of the rebel group, judges said, adding that Mr. Nitaganda's skills were held in high regard. The soft-spoken Nitaganda, known for his pencil mustache, cash and a penchant for fine dining, told judges during his trial that he was a soldier, not a criminal, and that the Terminator nickname did not apply to him. Rwandan-born Nitaganda was found guilty of 13 counts of war crimes, 5 counts of crimes against humanity for his role in the brutal conflict that racked the northeastern region. Prosecutors portrayed him as the ruthless leader of ethnic Tutsi revolts amid the wars that racked the DRC after the 1994 genocide of Tutsis in neighboring Rwanda. More than 60,000 people have been killed since the violence erupted in the region in 1999, according to rights groups, as militias battle each other for control of scarce mineral resources. Formerly a Congolese army general, Nitaganda then became a founding member of the M23 rebel group, which was eventually defeated by Congolese government forces in 2013, the first ever suspect to voluntarily surrender to the ICC. He walked into the U.S. Embassy in the Rwandan capital Kigali in 2013 and asked to be sent to the court based in the Netherlands. Eagle News International will be right back.
U.S. President Donald Trump warned Iran on Sunday over its imminent breach of a uranium enrichment cap.
Iran better be careful, because you enrich for one reason, and I won't tell you what that reason is, but it's no good. They better be careful.
Trump's top diplomat, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, earlier Sunday said Iran will face further sanctions in response to the expected breach of the cap set by an endangered nuclear deal reached with international powers, but from which the United States withdrew last year. The 3.67% enrichment limit set in the agreement is far below the more than 90% level required for a nuclear warhead. A 2015 deal was reached between Iran and 6 world powers, Britain, China, France, Germany, the United States, and Russia, and saw Tehran agree to drastically scale down its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. Washington began reimposing sanctions in August 2018 and has targeted crucial sectors including oil exports and the banking system, fueling a deep recession. Even after the U.S. pullout, experts said Iran had been complying with the agreement until early this month when it exceeded a limit on its enriched uranium reserves. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said Tehran could further scale back its commitments to the deal, but all such steps are reversible if European partners deliver on their part. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani initially flagged Tehran's intentions on May 8, exactly a year on from Trump's abandoning the pact. The Iranian president has said the move is in response to a failure by remaining parties to help Tehran work around sanctions already reimposed by the U.S.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump hit back on Sunday, and the U.K. launched an inquiry after leaked memos revealed Britain's ambassador in the U.S. had described the president and his White House as inept and uniquely dysfunctional. The confidential telegrams from Ambassador Kim Darroch created a political firestorm in London after their publication in the Mail on Sunday newspaper. One of them called the Trump administration uniquely dysfunctional, while another characterized the U.S. leader as incompetent and insecure. Their release came just a month after President Trump's state visit to Britain, during which he visibly enjoyed himself while dining with Queen Elizabeth II and touring Buckingham Palace with his family. They also threatened to complicate London's efforts to strike a new trade deal with Washington that could help mitigate potential damage from Britain's withdrawal from the European Union. President Trump fired back by saying that people in his administration were not big fans of London's man in Washington. Take a listen.
Seen it, but you know, we've had our little ins and outs with a couple of countries, and I would say that the UK and the ambassador has not served the UK well. I can tell you that. We're not big fans of that man, and he has not served the UK well. So I can understand it, and I can say things about him, but I won't bother.
UK officials took turns defending Darroch, or the ambassador, as a professional who was carrying out his duties by providing frank assessments of the latest developments in the White House. Meanwhile, Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said he hopes to get to the bottom of it, and of course there will be very serious consequences, he said, if and when they find out who was responsible.
President Donald Trump said he was weighing an executive order to overcome a Supreme Court ruling blocking his administration from adding a question about citizenship to the 2020 U.S. Census, which opponents say is politically motivated. A week after the High Court blocked the question and the administration announced it would accept the decision, the Justice Department also indicated Friday that it was seeking a new legal justification to add the citizenship question to the decennial national survey. President Trump appeared determined to find a way around the court's June 27 ruling, in which Chief Justice John Roberts said the administration had contrived a bogus reason to add the question, claiming it would help enforce minority rights.
Which arguments are going to be dealt with today?
Yeah, we're moving ahead with the census. They're spending $15 billion or some ridiculous amount of money on a census. I don't know why we can't do that through the computers of the world, because frankly that's the way you can do a census today, and probably a lot more accurately. But they're spending $15 to $20 billion on a census. They're asking everything except, are you a citizen of the United States? How ridiculous is that? So we are moving forward. We have a couple of avenues, and our Attorney General is doing a fantastic job in many ways, and I think he's got it under control.
What about a presidential memorandum?
We can do a memorandum, we can do an executive order, we're looking at different things, but there are other alternatives, and again, I believe our Attorney General, fantastic man, and I think he's got it very well under control.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday said migrant detention centers that have come under criticism for overcrowding and poor conditions will be open to visits by journalists. His comments came after the New York Times and the El Paso Times on Saturday published an article describing a Border Patrol station in Clint, Texas, as filled with hundreds of children wearing filthy clothing and packed into disease-ridden cells, a story Trump called a hoax.
Yeah, I think the New York Times story is a hoax. I think anything the New York Times writes nowadays, they're really, they use the word unhinged. The New York Times, I call it the failing New York Times for a reason. Check out their unfunded liability and see what they're worth. They're a failing, they're already a failed New York Times. But when they write a story like that, I went to my people and they said, sir, it's not true. We told them about a crisis. They said it was manufactured. They laughed and they scoffed for months. And then it turned out that it wasn't manufactured. It's a crisis. We were right about that. We told them that the detention centers are really full, and they've got to change the loopholes, and they have to change asylum. They have to change the immigration laws. We can do it quickly, but we have no votes to do it because the Democrats won't vote. We need some of their votes. But the New York Times story is a fabrication. Now, I look at things and I saw visually, I had people there that told me the job that they are doing is incredible. And in all cases, if you look, people that came from unbelievable poverty, that had no water, they had no anything, where they came from, those are people that are very happy with what's going on because, relatively speaking, they're in much better shape right now. The Border Patrol and all of the law enforcement that's working on the border, it's incredible what they're doing. They've had to become nurses. They've had to become janitors. They've had to become things that they were never trained to do, all because the Democrats refused to change the loopholes in the asylum laws, the immigration laws. So I think it's a disgrace. And the New York Times is basically a partner with the Democrats, the way I look at it. They should never be allowed to write stories like that. It's a disgrace.
Democratic lawmakers who also visited detention facilities reported massive crowding in cells with no running water, where children and adults lacked access to needed medicines and were deprived of showers for up to 2 weeks.
The head of New Democracy Party, winner of the general election in Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, says in a declaration to international media that he's willing to boost the economy in the country and start discussions with their European creditors immediately. Take a listen.
I'm very, very grateful for the result. We won an outright majority, which was our main target. We almost reached 40%, which is an incredible number given the context of a fragmented political landscape. And I feel that I have a strong mandate to deliver on my agenda, which is an agenda to grow the economy, to create more jobs, but also to make sure that the Greek people feel safe again. We will be receiving a vote of confidence from Parliament on Sunday, July the 21st. So we'll be ready to legislate immediately after that. And of course, our discussions with our European creditors will begin immediately.
Greece's incoming Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis is a hard-nosed reformer from a conservative political dynasty with controversial civil service job cuts on his resume. 3 years after taking over the leadership of the conservative New Democracy Party, once headed by his father, the 51-year-old Harvard graduate and former McKinsey consultant has promised to steamroll obstacles to business. He's pledged to create better jobs through growth, foreign investment and tax cuts. His critics argue that his pro-business platform and promised tax cuts can only credibly come at the expense of social benefits to crisis-hit families. In his sole ministerial stint in charge of administrative reform in 2014, he was tasked with eliminating 15,000 civil service posts under pressure from Greece's creditors. The downsizing was cut short by elections, but Mitsotakis' tag as a hatchet man has endured. Meanwhile, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras admitted defeat.
Πριν από λίγο επικοινώνησα με τον Κυριάκο Μητσοτάκη για να τον συγχαρώ για την εκλογική του νίκη.
Dialogue between Venezuela's opposition and President Nicolas Maduro's government will resume in Barbados, self-declared interim President Juan Guaido said on Sunday after previous negotiations in Norway petered out. President Maduro's government suggested talks would resume this week. Delegations representing the Venezuelan rivals met face-to-face in Oslo for the first time in late May. The process began 2 weeks earlier under Norwegian auspices to find a solution to the South American country's economic and political crisis. Oil-rich Venezuela has been ravaged by 5 years of recession, marked by shortages of food, medicine, and other basic necessities. It plunged deeper into political turmoil in January when National Assembly Speaker Guaido declared himself acting president in a direct challenge to Maduro's authority. On Sunday, Guaido also announced that he would push for Caracas to join the Inter-American Defense Treaty, which Venezuela left in 2012. Some opposition lawmakers believe the treaty, from which Bolivia, Ecuador, and Nicaragua have also withdrawn, could legally allow foreign military intervention to overthrow Maduro.
Okay, on a lighter note, Arian Torres Suwan takes us to the Blunt's Point, American Samoa's World War II defense site. Arian?
As the U.S. only territory in the Southern Hemisphere, American Samoa's strategic location became hugely important. After the attacks at the Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, there was some evidence in early 1942 that Japan was preparing to invade Samoa and other nearby islands. Fearing that Japanese naval ships could also cut off supply routes to Australia and New Zealand, the U.S. deployed 2 Marine brigades in the Samoa Islands and constructed the Blunt's Point Naval Gun Battery along Matautau Bridge, on one of the highest points on the island. Thankfully, after being badly defeated in the Battle of Midway in 1942, Japan was no longer considered a threat in the South Pacific. In a way, Blunt's Point successfully defended American Samoa and nearby islands, even without firing a single shot against the enemy. In the year that followed, Blanks Point served as the home to the U.S. Marine Corps Advanced Training Center in jungle warfare. Today, the Blanks Point Battery, also known as Blanks Point's naval gun site, is a rare example of a World War II Pacific coastal gun, which remains in relatively pristine condition. It was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1987. Currently, a World War II Heritage Trail recognized by the U.S. National Park Service, Blanks Point is located near the mouth of the Pango Harbor, about 915 feet or 279 meters above sea level. The trail itself is about 3 miles or 4.8 kilometers long, and the trip can be completed in about 2 hours. But once you arrive at the top, make sure your camera is in good working condition because the views are just breathtaking. From here, you can see the beautiful South Pacific and the capital city of Pango. We hope you've enjoyed our little tour of Blanks Point Naval Gun Site. Reporting from Pango in American Samoa, this is Arian Torres Suan, 1 with 25, Faafetai Telelava.
We'll be back with more news right after this break.
hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Healthcare professionals joined a two-day home care congress in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. Our EBC correspondent Zara Gayeta for the report.
Healthcare professionals joined the two-day home care congress in Abu Dhabi, UAE. More than 100 healthcare professionals from diverse nationalities residing in the United Arab Emirates have joined the Home Care Management Congress held from June 28 to June 29 at Yas Rotana Hotel in Abu Dhabi. The delegates consist of doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, and other healthcare professionals in management sectors. The conference, spearheaded by the MKH Events, aims to uplift the home care professionals with better and high-standard medical services in the region.
Our mission in this Congress, in this 2018 Home Care Management Congress, is to educate all disciplines involved in home care management and in home care setting.
Several topics relevant to home care settings, modern health equipment, issues and challenges of nurses and those working in the home care industry were presented and deliberated among delegates and expert speakers. Participants were also given the opportunities to raise their concerns at the parallel sessions. The two-day Congress gave the participants with 14 CME units accredited by the Abu Dhabi's Department of Health. The organizers invited nurses and those in the home care industry in the UAE to join the Congress to be held next year, 2020.
The impact that we want from this Congress is that people unite together, they come together and are educated. We build knowledge, we build specialisms within home care, and we get people passionate again around the services that they are delivering.
Reporting from Abu Dhabi, UAE, for Eagle News International, I am Zara Gayata and I am 1 for 25.
Thank you, Zara. A new data set from the International Labour Organization, or ILO, revealed that 10% of workers worldwide receive 48.9% of total global pay, while the lowest paid 50% of workers receive just 6.4%. The data set released on July 4 also said that the lowest 20% of income earners, around 650 million workers, earn less than 1% of global labor income, a figure that has hardly changed in 13 years. Take a look.
In 2017, the top 10% earn on average more or less $7,500 per month, whereas the bottom 50%, which is 1.6 billion people, earn just shy of $200 per month.
The new data set shows that overall global labor income inequality has fallen since 2004. However, this is not due to reductions in inequality within countries. At the national level, pay inequality is actually increasing. Rather, it is because of increasing prosperity in large emerging economies, namely China and India. Overall, the findings say income inequality remains pervasive in the world of work.
In the US, the UK, and in Germany, what we see is that the top 10% is seeing increases, particularly focused even more in the top 5%, and the rest of the distribution is losing, with the middle class and somewhat in the lower end of the distribution is also losing.
In those countries where you've seen the very top income earners go up, everybody below the top 10% loses. So what the data show is that it's very important, if you want broad-based gains, it's important to focus on the middle part of this distribution of workers.
The labor income share and distribution data set developed by the ILO Department of Statistics contains data from 189 countries and is drawn from the world's largest collection of harmonized labor force survey data. It offers two new indicators for major trends in the world of work at national, regional, and global levels. One provides the first internationally comparable figures of the shares of GDP that goes to workers rather than capital through wages and earnings. The second looks at how labor income is distributed.
Run the table 15.
Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, said Sunday it would cut 18,000 jobs, around one in five of its workforce by 2022, as it launched yet another round of restructuring after years floundering with weak performance and legal woes. Restructuring would include a workforce reduction of approximately 18,000 employees to around 74,000 employees by 2022. Deutsche said in a statement. The bank said the layoffs would reduce annual costs by 6 billion euros over the same period. The lender did not immediately make clear where the axe would fall, but with executives looking to find synergies in integration of subsidiary post-bank and central infrastructure roles, many jobs are likely to go in home country Germany. The new round of job cuts comes on top of some 6,000 already carried out over the past year. Bosses expect the restructuring plan to sap second quarter results by some 3 billion euros this year, making for a net loss of 2.8 billion. Over the whole year, Deutsche is likely to plunge back into the red after a brief flirtation with profitability in 2018. The bank does not plan to pay out dividends this year or next.
British Airways has been fined more than £183 million after computer hackers last year stole bank details from hundreds of thousands of passengers, according to its parent group IAG. Now, in a statement, the IAG said the UK Information Commissioner's Office intends to issue the airline with a penalty notice under the UK Data Protection Act, totaling £183.39 million. Now, BA CEO Alex Cruz said the airline was surprised and disappointed by the punishment. He said BA responded quickly to a criminal act to steal customers' data. Personal data of approximately 500,000 customers were compromised beginning in June 2018, according to the ICO. This was shortly after the European Union introduced its tighter data protection law, the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. British Airways, meanwhile, publicly revealed the hack in September. The stolen data comprised customer names, postal addresses, email addresses, and credit card information. However, the 15-day breach, which was fixed on discovery, didn't involve travel or passport details. And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
A penalty by Megan Rapinoe and a strike by Rose Lavelle steer the United States women to a 2-0 victory over the Netherlands in the Women's World Cup final in Lyon, France. Watch this.
So proud. Like, I played soccer my whole life, and I'm just really proud of these women and what they've done and what they've proven to people that they can do. Like, they're fighting so hard all the time, and I just think it's really incredible. It was an incredible game to watch, and like my body was tense the whole time, and I was like go US, man.
In other news, a 46-year-old American was in serious condition after he and two others were gored during the first day of the running of the bulls in the northern Spanish town of Pamplona, according to authorities. Take a look. Now, the American, aged 46, was in a serious condition after being gored in the neck, according to a medical report from the Navarra regional authorities. Another American, aged 23, and a Spaniard were also hospitalized after being gored during the bull run, one of the most crowded events of this week-long event. Both men were gored in the left thigh, but their condition was not as serious. Another 3 people, all Spaniards and aged between 18 and 38, were also hurt during the run. The Red Cross in Spain had warned that the event would be especially dangerous because of the large number of people participating.
The Las Vegas NBA Summer League was sold out for opening day. Here's Aljamain Santos for the report.
The NBA Summer League that is hosted at the Thomas & Mack has been an attraction for sports fans since its inaugural season of 2004. The desert summer climate is not enough to deter basketball fans from being able to preview some of the league's up-and-coming stars. The marquee matchup between Duke's recently drafted superstars, Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett, ending Friday's debut may be the biggest reason the seats were sold out. Fans from all over the country share their reasons for traveling to Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, we just love the NBA. We've come multiple years and able to see all the young players coming up. And so, all-day ticket, so we're coming for 2 or 3 days, and you could come here at noon and go all the way till 10 o'clock at night and just watch NBA basketball. It's fantastic. Who do we want to see most, though?
Like Zion, players from the Suns or the Pacers. Those are 2 favorite teams, and just the whole NBA as they grow.
My son loves the NBA, and we were here last year, and we were very intimate. We got close to all the players. They're all super nice. Got pictures, and I had a ball just watching all the players. That's why we came from Indiana.
We obviously want to see Zion Williamson. So these guys got to see him actually play at Notre Dame in person. I never did, but he looks like he's an amazing player, and I just want to see him in person.
Man, it's the best place to see all the young talent, all the best talent in the world. In college,
they hit the court.
Exactly, before they hit the court.
Zion Williamson,
R.J. Barrett, Zion, there's a lot of good talent. Cam Reddish, there's a lot of good talent, but Zion and RJ for sure. All the teams and all the fans too. You get fans from different places, different spots all over the country. Denver, Minnesota, LA, all around the world.
I'm still definitely team Zion.
Yeah, tonight though, RJ gonna take it, man.
In 2018, the NBA Summer League set the event record for total attendance with 139,972,000, and in 2017, a single-day attendance of 17,500. And with the debut of the anticipated rookies, Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett, it looks as though it may happen again. From the Thomas & Mack here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, I am Aljamain Santos, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Aljamain.
Thank you, Aljamain. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Zepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're 1 with 25.